Hello everyone, with Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Saturday evening, August 3, 2024. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video. I'd really appreciate it if you guys get this video up to 100 likes. If you don't know by now, that's how the YouTube algorithm works. We all like the video and then the YouTube algorithm pushes the video out to more persons who are in the path of these tropical systems, so we can keep everyone safe, especially during the peak of Atlantic hurricane season, that's August through to October. Share this video with your friends, your co-workers, your relatives, and even your church brethren, and subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Leave a comment down below letting me know whether that's been like your year recently. Also, feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so as stated earlier, in terms of the time of year that we usually have the most in the way of tropical cyclone activity, as we can see by this graph, it's usually during the months of August, September, that's the peak, and October. And by the way, this is based on data from 1944 to 2020, so that's where we usually see most of these tropical storms and hurricanes. In terms of where we've had tropical storms forming during the first 10 days of August, considering that today is August 3, all of these red dots represent where we've seen storms forming. We're not going to be looking at this part of the map, that's the Eastern Pacific, that has nothing to do with us here in the Atlantic. We do see all of these red dots that represent some amount of tropical storm formation, and we see a lot of them across the main development region that has to do with most of these tropical waves coming off of Africa and pushing from east to west. So we definitely have to be looking out there to see what is to come. And as it relates to the typical tracks, we know the ridge of high pressure to the north is going to be steering most of these systems into the Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico, if not into the Caribbean, to the north of the Greater Antilles, into the Bahamas, Florida, or maybe curving out to sea right there to the east of the United States. And this year we have a lot of warm water to work with, and we've already seen that the warm water was taken advantage of by Hurricane Beryl, and there's still a lot more to come, considering that the waters are still warm in this region, that's the main development region, and we have most of these systems crossing over. Lots of yellows, gold, orange colors represent some crazy sea surface temperatures. That's how warm the water is at the skin of the ocean. And yes, sometimes we can have some of these hurricanes churning up the water and removing some of the sea surface temperature in terms of the warmth and replacing it with some whites or some blues that represents average to below average sea surface temperature. But this year, considering that even at a greater depth, look at this map, even at a greater depth in the ocean, keep in mind that this map is showing the tropical cyclone heat potential, which is basically the warm waters the deeper we go into the ocean, and it's represented by the yellows, gold, oranges, especially the reds. Look at the reds near Jamaica. That's some deep warm water. So even if there's a hurricane that's going to be stalled out or sitting over a certain spot, yes, it's going to be taking advantage of the sea surface, that's the skin of the ocean, but it still has a lot of deep warm water to work with. So we would think that, oh, it's sucking up all of the sea surface temperatures on the top of the ocean, so it's going to be weakening if it's going to be sitting in place. But if it's going to be sitting in place in an area like across the Caribbean or the Western Caribbean, Northwestern Caribbean, near Cuba, Jamaica, where we see those tremendous warm ocean waters, the deeper we go, it's just going to be strengthening the more it sits over that spot. And the atmosphere is definitely going to be in its favor, because across the Eastern Pacific into the Central Pacific, we have a developing La Nina. It's not at La Nina yet, it's still at neutral conditions. We know that we're just coming out of an El Nino. El Nino is where we have a lot of warm water across this portion of the basin, and that causes more thunderstorms across the eastern to the central Pacific, more waves becoming tropical storms, hurricanes, and that in turn causes upper level winds, that's wind shear across portions of the Caribbean, and that tears off the tops of these thunderstorms and in most cases prevents them from becoming tropical storms or hurricanes. But with it being a neutral like pattern right now, as a matter of fact, it's been neutral since we've had Beryl. It's not doing much for the Caribbean at all. No upper level wind shear to work with, because the waters are not that warm to support a lot of thunderstorm and tropical storm activity across this portion of the basin, which is why Beryl did a number on portion of the Caribbean and even strengthened to category 5, because the wind shear is definitely not there like that to destroy the system at all. And we're going to be having some more systems like this as we head throughout the rest of the hurricane season. Hopefully it's not as bad as Beryl though. Alright, so before we start talking about what's happening across the Atlantic in terms of what the Hurricane Center is stating, we need to highlight some of what the experts are saying. This is Eric Webb. He's a meteorologist, and from time to time he makes some posts that are very accurate about the hurricane season. And he actually mentioned this in yesterday's post, and he mentioned it again today. He made this post at about 2:31 p.m. and he stated, in the wake of Tropical Depression 4, so at that time it was still Tropical Depression 4, but it upgraded today finally to Tropical Storm Debbie, we'll likely have to turn our attention to a pair of tropical waves in the central Atlantic and west coast of Africa, respectively. And he's also stating that these tropical waves are definitely going to be having some support with an enhanced phase of the NJ or Kelvin wave. Just some fancy terms to say that we're going to be having a lot of upward motion, and we can see being represented by the green colors. We've been talking about this for the past couple of days. More upward motion, so it's easy for these thunderstorms to formulate and get stronger, possibly becoming tropical depressions, tropical storms. And these are the waves that he is referring to. So here we have Debbie right here, affecting portions of Cuba, getting ready to lash portions of the southeastern United States. And this is the tropical wave right here to the east of the Windward Island. That's going to be pushing westward, and that's a bit too close for comfort for us here in Jamaica. And there's a chance that it could develop. And although the Hurricane Center hasn't highlighted anything as yet, it could change in the coming days. And he's also highlighted this other tropical wave that's about to emerge off of Africa. So we have to stay tuned to see exactly what unfolds, especially with the very warm sea surface temperatures. And if we actually take a look at some of these supercomputer model forecasts, it is actually quite interesting to see. So here we have Debbie right here across the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, and we're just going to be going out in time to the next 168 hours. That's actually the next 7 days, and we're going to be focusing our attention on this area right here. So yes, we're going to be seeing Debbie push northward into the United States and do whatever she's going to do. But we're going to start seeing some moisture coming in from the Main region and pushing westward. So let us see exactly how that goes. So let us go out in time. By the way, remember, based on the key on the right, you know, the greens represent some amount of rainfall, the yellows represent heavy rainfall. So if we actually go out in time, we start to see the increase in moisture. Look at that right there, affecting portions of the Windward Islands right there. Keep in mind that this is valid for 21Z on Sunday, which is actually 4 p.m. on Sunday. So the Windward Islands definitely going to be getting in on some rainfall by then. And as we go out into time, we start to see the moisture coming in, but it's more so squashed towards the south. So it's definitely across portions of the Caribbean, right there to the far south of Jamaica, even trying to get a bit more north, lifting a bit more north. We see some of the greens that represent rainfall coming into portions of Jamaica as well. So who knows, we might definitely be affected by this system. Keep in mind that this is valid for 21Z on Thursday, August 8th, which is actually 4 p.m. on Thursday. So we might just get in on some of the rainfall associated with that tropical wave. Not saying that's going to be developing, but we can see that by the end of the 168 hours, we still have a lot of moisture coming into the eastern and central Caribbean, and that system should be across the western Caribbean in general. If we actually take a look at what the GFS is showing, let us see what the GFS is showing. So we're just going to be going on to the same time period, the next 168 hours. Let us see what's going on. So we see the moisture coming into portion of the southern Caribbean right there, associated with the tropical wave. And then by the time we get into 18th on Thursday, it's actually 1 p.m. on Thursday, we see the moisture right here to the south of Jamaica, to the east of Nicaragua. You even see some turning right there. And then as we continue out to the next 168 hours, we start to see something right there. Look at this. This showing some amount of isobars, some dark greens, yellows, oranges, reds in there. That could be, if not a strong tropical wave, maybe a tropical depression or a tropical storm trying to formulate. We just have to stay tuned to see exactly what happens. And that's just the next 168 hours. So we have to stay tuned. The Euro showing a strong tropical wave, the GFS showing the moisture associated with that tropical wave. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what unfolds. And even if the system does not develop, there's still a lot of heavy rainfall that's expected with it. We can see the reds, the burgundy colors, the purples that we know represent a lot of rainfall. You can see the key right there on the right that represents up to 1 inch or 2, maybe up to 3 inches of rainfall. And we see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in consensus with this, even though both of them squash most of the rainfall to the south, maybe affecting sections of northern South America into portions of Central America. Either way, I'm sure most of us here in the Caribbean will take the rainfall to cool down the temperatures. And we know that the next name on the list is Ernesto, considering that we have Debbie going on right now. If we take a look at the U.S. National Hurricane Center 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook, as stated earlier, there's nothing to see. Hurricane Center hasn't highlighted anything as yet. It's only a matter of time before they do, though, so stay tuned. Maybe one of these tropical waves across the main development region, the one across Africa, could develop soon or catch the eye of the Hurricane Center. But the main focus is Debbie. So we can see her right here to the northwest of Cuba, and she's packing maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. So that makes her a minimal tropical storm. So it's not like she's on the high end scale of a tropical storm, not a strong tropical storm at all. If she was a strong tropical storm, she would be somewhere close to 73 miles per hour, trying to make it close to hurricane status, packing 74 miles per hour winds or more. But we see that there's a chance for her to make it to hurricane status, as we can see the H here. We actually mentioned this in yesterday's video. The H represents hurricane. So it's only a matter of time. Yesterday we didn't see the H. We saw S's coming all the way into the US. Now we see the H. So there could be a hurricane warning in effect. If you have friends or relatives in Florida, please ensure that you contact them, get them to take these systems seriously. We can see the tropical storm force winds right there in the gold or brownish colors, especially to the north and east of the system. As usual, that side is usually the bad weather side of these systems. We can see the Florida Keys and the western coast of Florida right now under a blue. That's a tropical storm warning. And we can see the red that represents hurricane warning right there, close to the Florida panhandle. And we can see the track is definitely uncertain as soon as it heads inland. It's going to be interesting to see what unfolds. Either way, there's going to be a lot of rainfall. We see the greens represents up to 1 to 2, maybe up to 3 inches of rainfall. The yellows that represents up to 4. The golds to 6 inches of rainfall or more. Oranges 8 inches of rainfall, up to 12 inches, up to 16 inches, especially right there off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. And I'm actually in one of these East Coast states, so I'm going to be getting in on some of the rainfall associated with Debbie eventually. and there's definitely going to be a risk of flash flooding across portions of these United States coastal areas. We see the greens represent at least a 5% chance of flood, 15% chance of flooding in the yellow shaded areas, moderate chance of flooding, 40% chance in the red shaded areas. So it makes sense. The areas that are going to be immediately impacted by Debbie going to be getting on the most in the way of flood conditions. So if you have relatives or friends in any one of these states, please ensure that you get them to take this matter seriously. We don't want to hear anything about any loss of life, all courtesy of Debbie at all. Alright, so let us take a look at what the Hurricane Center is showing on their Atlantic discussion. So they've actually mentioned the two tropical waves that we mentioned earlier. The Eastern Atlantic Tropical Wave, that's the one coming off of Africa, and the Central Atlantic Tropical Wave, that's the one coming closer to the Caribbean. And we can see them all right here being represented on the surface map. That's the tropical wave that's going to be affecting portions of the Caribbean on Sunday. This is the Eastern Atlantic Tropical Wave, and all of these are pushing from east to west in the flow of easterly trade winds brought about by these ridges of high pressure. If we take a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic before the sun went down, we can see Debbie right here spinning away. We can see the upper level outflow associated with the system, showing that the system is trying to breathe and get its act together. You can also see the spiral band going into the system and spinning counterclockwise to show that there's definitely an area of low pressure within there. Strong thunderstorms, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be getting even more intense with some darker reds, high cold cloud tops as seen on the infrared satellite images. We can definitely see the clouds right here. As a matter of fact, if you look closely, you can see a bit of a spin in a way-ish. If you know what to look for already. This tropical wave is definitely going to be pushing westward, and remember there's a lot of warm water to work with, so it could develop later on. So please ensure that you stay tuned if you're living in the Eastern Caribbean. It's definitely pushing westward. We know how bad these tropical waves can be in general, even if they don't develop. And we can also see the clouds associated with that other tropical wave across the Eastern Atlantic. We'll be talking more about the rest of the Caribbean weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today, Saturday, August 3, 2024. It was stated that parts of eastern Jamaica would have received some rainfall on Saturday morning, also affecting sections of some northern and western parishes during Saturday afternoon. And just for reference, we know eastern parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Surrey. So Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew. While northern parishes, we're talking about those parishes on top. So Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland. Western parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall. So St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, and Trelawney. And what ended up happening? Well, even in last night's video, we highlighted that there were some clouds coming in from the south, affecting portions of some southern parishes, sections of St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth. Some of these clouds definitely made it as far north as Trelawney, St. James, Hanover as well. And it even spilled into the morning hours, so we did still get in on more of the overcast skies and rainfall across sections of southern Jamaica, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth. We're getting rainfall when this post was made at 6:36 a.m. on our Twitter page at Weather Jamaica. Keep in mind that these posts aren't only made here on our Twitter page, but they are made on our Instagram page at Weather.Jamaica, on our TikTok page at Weather Jamaica, and on our Facebook page at Weather Jamaica 876. So if you have one of those social media platforms, please ensure that you follow us there, as we make posts throughout the day that you can't afford to miss. And we also saw that we had the isolated showers across sections of eastern Jamaica just as predicted. So although the rainfall wasn't that crazily predicted for southern or western portions of the island, eastern Jamaica definitely got in on the morning rainfall that was predicted, as there was somewhat of isolated showers affecting portions of St. Thomas and Portland at that time. And then during the afternoon, we actually had the isolated showers across northern Jamaica, Most of the thunderstorms out to sea though, maybe sections of Hanover, north of there, northwest of St. James, north of St. Anne, northwest of St. Mirror as well. And we saw that some of these clouds were definitely bring some isolated showers to sections of Hanover, St. James, section of Trelawney, section of St. Anne, and St. Mary. While the rest of the island was definitely baking in the sun. If we take a look here at the Crossroads camp, this is about 3:01 p.m. and we saw that it was definitely a sunny day, nothing drastic taking place, no rainfall, no cloud cover, well, not much cloud cover. We do see some clouds dotting the hills of St. Andrew right there, but nothing to hang your hat on, no rainfall at all. Definitely a sunny day for the most part in the corporate area. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of Jamaica before the sun went down, we can definitely see what took place. We had more of a southeasterly flow of low-level winds and clouds, which was what brought most of the rainfall across northern Jamaica. All of that air piled up. Then we had that diurnal convection, that daytime heating as usual and as predicted. If we take a look at what's happening right now across Jamaica in terms of the latest infrared satellite image, this is as of 25 minutes past the hour. If we actually take a look at the latest image, we don't see much taking place, just some upper level clouds streaking from northeast to southwest right there, and there isn't any rainfall within these clouds at all, so there's nothing to worry about. And we can see it all being confirmed here on the latest Cuban Doppler radar images. So we can definitely see that we have more of a southeasterly flow coming in. Most of these rains pushing into Debbie. We can see most of them right there to the east of the Cayman Islands, to the south of Cuba, pushing northward. But we do see some dots of greens right there to the south of St. Thomas. They were definitely getting on some isolated showers earlier, and they could get on some more tonight. But as of right now, nothing taking place in terms of the corporate area. This is the latest halfway tree cam as of 8:43 p.m. right there. Nothing to see here. Persons going about their business. No rainfall or anything like that right now. If we take a look at the temperatures right now, we can tell we have 26 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 27 degrees Celsius in Kingston, and by about 4 a.m. on Sunday, temperature should dip down to about 25 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 26 degrees Celsius in Kingston. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, this map from the GFS is showing 18Z on Sunday. When we calculate that, that's 1 p.m. on Sunday, and we can see Jamaica right here embedded in some gold colors that represents what, up to 2 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures, as we can see by the key on the right. And we know the normal temperatures for the month of August across Jamaica are about the same as 91 degrees Fahrenheit. 91 degrees Fahrenheit is about the same as 32.7 degrees Celsius. So we should be receiving anywhere from 32 to 34 degrees Celsius at most for Jamaica's temperature on Sunday. As it relates to the Saharan dust forecast for 2 p.m. on Sunday, we can see Jamaica right here. Not getting in on much Saharan dust at all. We're actually getting in on a break, so the sky is definitely going to be looking blue tomorrow. Most of the Saharan dust should be across the southern Caribbean, the western Caribbean, the eastern Caribbean right there, reaching all the way into portions of Africa right there. And we can see the most vigorous plume right there off the coast of Africa is represented by these darker shades of browns. So that's some wicked plume right there that could cause hazy skies, not to mention trigger some amount of asthma or sinusitis in some persons. And eventually, we know all of this is pushing from east to west, so it's definitely going to be making it to the Jamaica area soon. But we just hope that by the time it gets there, it has dwindled down to more of these lighter shades of browns that we know is not that bad. If we take a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, we can see that majority of the Caribbeans, especially around Jamaica, still getting in on those lighter shades of blues. The darker shades of blues that we know represent anywhere from 0.5 meter wave height to 1.5 meter wave height. And that's because the winds are going to be averaging anywhere from 10 to 20 knots. And it's going to be strongest right there where Debbie is expected to be. Look at these winds. Up into the yellows, the gold, the burgundy colors, up to even to the blue colors that represent tropical storm course, winds. Either way, the Caribbean, generally, easterly winds as usual, all courtesy of the ridge of high pressure right there, sending all of the winds around it in a clockwise fashion. On the southern side of it, getting the easterly flow. And we even see some yellows in there across the Caribbean. So maybe some of the winds could get up to the 25 knot region. As it relates to the Jamaica forecast, we can see that the air is going to be piling up as usual across sections of the west, with the winds coming in more so from the east southeast. So any rainfall that we get coming off of the sea, maybe St. Thomas and Portland as usual. But look at where the air is piling up. Wherever we have the least amount of winds, that's where we're going to be having the diurnal convection, that daytime heating rainfall. Because all of these clouds, just like today, are going to be piling up across these spots right here. So maybe a section of St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover might get in on some of the afternoon rainfall on Sunday as usual. And the upper level winds are already coming in from the northeast. This is the flow having the upper level wind from that direction, and we already saw it on the infrared satellite images with these high cold cloud tops being blown off towards the southwest. So it's gonna be having, where we're going to be having the same pattern again on Sunday. And if we actually take a look at the rainfall forecast, I guess we could say that the rainfall forecast is already verifying. This is valid for 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's actually 10 p.m. Jamaica time. And we do see the blues that represent some amount of rainfall affecting section of eastern Jamaica. Some of it might even affect section of southern Jamaica, maybe section of Clarendon, Manchester, as some of this rainfall coming in from the southeast. And we already saw it on the Cuban Doppler radar images with the rainfall out to sea. Some of this rainfall could definitely make it into our area by 10 p.m. if it's not already happening right now. And then by about 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 3 p.m. Jamaica time, we see where the rainfall is expected. GFS making more sense though, showing more of the blues represent rainfall across the northwest. So sections of Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland getting in on the most in the way of rainfall. You are not making much sense, even although it's incorporating the areas that we just mentioned on the GFS. But it's showing some rainfall into central and eastern Jamaica too. But we're not inclined to believe that because we don't see it on the GFS. We're looking for consensus. We're looking for what both of them are showing. And we see that both of them are showing that northwestern Jamaica will be getting on the most in the way of rainfall tomorrow. And we see the Euro and the GFS in some slight differences, because the Euro is showing some of the rainfall across the central portions. The GFS showing the rainfall across the eastern and northwestern portions, which makes more sense. So yes, we're going to be getting on rainfall, and we're indeed grateful. We're in the month of August, and we shall receive an increase in the amount of rainfall during the month for both Montego Bay right here and Kingston here. Bar graphs showing the rainfall throughout the year. Kingston's bar graph in millimeters, Montego Bay's bar graph in inches. Montego Bay receives up to almost 5 inches of rainfall during the month of August. And Kingston usually receives up to almost 100 millimeters of rainfall during the month of August. You can do the math yourself. We know 1 inch of rainfall is about the same as 25 millimeters of rainfall. So you do the math. And you can also visit weatherandclimate.com to find out about the annual rainfall for your specific parish. Alright, so that is it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So we do see some dots of clouds coming in from the east to affect sections of some of these Caribbean islands. Section of northern South America as usual getting in on some afternoon thunderstorms. Central America too. Section of the Bahamas associated with the outer bands of Tropical Storm Debbie. Florida definitely getting nailed by Debbie already with her outer bands. And the clouds associated with the tropical waves that we've mentioned that are pushing from east to west. Definitely going to be nailing portions of the Eastern Caribbean soon. If we take a look at the northeastern Caribbean's Doppler radar image as of right now, we do see some of the greens that represent some light to moderate rainfall, but nothing drastic. Some isolated showers right now for sections of Dominican Republic, the waters to the north of Puerto Rico, the waters in and around Antigua and Barbuda, Guadeloupe, Montserrat, St. Martin, St. Kitts and Nevis as well. And if we take a look at the Barbados radar, we do see some rainfall coming in from the east-northeast, some isolated showers affecting the portion of Barbados earlier, maybe later on tonight as well. Sections of the waters to the south of Martinique to the north of St. Lucia got some rainfall. We also see some rainfall affecting portions of Trinidad and Tobago as we speak. If we take a look at the wide wave Doppler radar images, we can see some isolated showers affecting portions of northern Venezuela, the border of Suriname and French Guiana. We can also see some rainfall right there to the east of the Cayman Islands. Rainfall definitely lashing portions of northwestern Cuba associated with Debbie, and even sections of Florida. We can see Debbie right here spinning away over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. And as it relates to the rainfall forecast, we can definitely see that the heaviest rainfall across the entire western Atlantic will be across the waters to the west of Florida. Portions of Florida are definitely going to be getting the heaviest rainfalls. We can see these purples represents up to 3 inches of rainfall or more. Sections of Cuba definitely still going to be getting more rainfall. By the way, keep in mind that both of these maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Sunday. And we know the greens and the yellows represent more, so we have isolated showers. Not saying that's going to be raining all day, but in some spots within the next 24 hours. So definitely more rainfall for the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, the US and British Virgin Islands, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Martin, Antigua and Barbuda, Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia getting in on the mix. We also see some rainfall in store for sections of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago. More so for coastal areas of French Guiana and Suriname, sections of Guyana, Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula also getting in on some of this rainfall. And we see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in consensus with this forecast. I know that when they're in agreement like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.